The sound that woke him wasn't the storm. It was the muffled cry of someone trying very hard not to be heard. Cade Brennan sat up in the cold darkness of his barn, the rifle across his lap suddenly heavier. Outside the double doors, the November wind tore through the Montana timber with the low roar of a distant avalanche. Inside, pressed against the far wall near the empty horse stalls, a woman held her daughter and tried to keep them both from shaking apart. He'd found them 3 hours earlier, soaked and stumbling up the logging road in the rain. The little girl couldn't have been more than 5. The woman had a split lip and a bruise spreading dark across her cheekbone. When he'd asked if she needed the law, she'd flinched so hard she'd nearly dropped the child. "Just a dry place," she'd whispered. "Just until we're well enough to move on." He'd offered the cabin. She'd refused. "Too much risk," she said, "for a man's reputation. The barn would do." She'd asked for nothing but a corner out of the wind. So Cade had given her blankets, hot coffee in a tin thermos, and biscuits wrapped in a cloth. Then he'd taken his bedroll, his rifle, and a lantern, and made his bed across the barn doors. If trouble came looking for her, it would have to go through him first. That was 3 hours ago. Now, in the deep cold of midnight, he listened to the woman murmur something soft to her daughter. A lullaby, maybe, or a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. Cade Brennan had lived alone in these mountains for 8 years. He was 34, massive across the shoulders, with a thick, dark beard and hands scarred from axe work and rough winters. He spoke to almost no one. The few trappers and hunters who passed through his valley called him fair but cold, a man who'd lost something long ago and never bothered looking for it again. He didn't know why he cared what happened to a stranger and her child, but he did, and he wasn't moving from that door. 4 days earlier, the world had still made a kind of sense to Anna Coulter. She was 29, a widow for 2 years, and mother to a bright, serious little girl named Lucy. They lived in a narrow house on the edge of Ridge Falls, a timber town 70 miles south, where Anna cleaned rooms at the boarding house and took in mending to make ends meet. It wasn't much, but it was hers, until her late husband's brother decided it shouldn't be. Raymond Coulter had always looked at Anna like she was part of his brother's estate, something he was owed. When he'd shown up drunk 3 nights ago, shouting that the house belonged to the family and she had no right to keep it, Anna had locked the door and prayed he'd leave. He'd kicked it in. She'd fought him off with a fire poker and run with Lucy into the rain. No coat, no money, just the clothes on their backs and the knowledge that Raymond wouldn't stop. He'd told her as much through the broken door. "You think you can run from me? I'll find you, Anna. And when I do, you'll sign that deed, or I'll make sure you can't hold a pen ever again." So she'd run, north, into the mountains, where the roads turned to mud and the trees swallowed the sky. She'd walked until her boots fell apart. Lucy had cried herself silent. The rain had turned to sleet. And then, through the gray curtain of storm, she'd seen smoke. A lone cabin, tucked into a clearing surrounded by towering pines. Firelight in the window, a man's shadow moving inside. She'd almost kept walking, but Lucy's lips were blue, and Anna's vision was starting to blur at the edges. So she climbed the porch steps and knocked. The man who opened the door was enormous. Shirtless despite the cold, his chest broad and ridged with muscle, his arms thick as fence posts. A dish towel hung over one shoulder. He smelled like wood smoke and bacon grease. He looked at her, then at Lucy, shivering in her arms. "You hurt." His voice was low, rough, like stones grinding together. "We just need," and his voice cracked. "We need to get dry. Please. Just the barn. We won't trouble you. Barn's no place for a child. We can't come inside. It wouldn't be proper. You need to sit down before you fall down." He stepped aside. "Get in here." Anna hesitated. She'd learned the hard way what happened when you trusted the wrong man. But Lucy was so cold. So she stepped inside. The cabin was small, clean, and warm. A fire crackled in the stone hearth. Rough-hewn furniture, a table set with one plate, shelves lined with books. He poured coffee. He didn't ask questions. He set a quilt around Lucy's shoulders and didn't touch either of them without asking first. When Anna explained she couldn't stay in the house, that it wasn't safe for his reputation, that people would talk, he'd looked at her for a long time. Then he'd picked up his bedroll. "Barn it is, then," he said. "But I'm sleeping in front of the door. You don't have to, I know." And that was the end of it. Now, As the wind howled and the darkness pressed close, Anna held her daughter and wondered what kind of man gave up his own bed, his own warmth, to guard two strangers he owed nothing to. She didn't know, but she was about to find out. Morning came slow and gray. Cade woke to the sound of the barn door latch rattling gently from the inside. He sat up, rifle still across his lap, and called out low, "It's Cade. You meet something?" A pause. Then Anna's voice, quiet and careful. "I didn't want to wake you. I was just checking." "Checking what?" "That you were still there." He heard the fear underneath the words. She wasn't checking if he'd left. She was checking if someone else had come. "Nobody's getting past me," he said. "I give you my word." Another pause. Then, softer, "Thank you." Cade stood, shook out his bedroll, and pushed the barn door open. Cold morning light spilled across the clearing. Frost clung to the grass. His breath plumed white. Inside, Anna was crouched beside Lucy, tucking the quilt tighter around the child's shoulders. The little girl's eyes were huge and solemn. She didn't speak, but she watched him like he was a storm she was still learning to predict. Anna looked worse in the daylight. The bruise on her face had darkened to deep purple. Her hands were raw and blistered. Her dress was torn at the hem. "There's a washtub in the back of the barn," Cade said. "I'll heat water on the stove and bring it out. You can clean up, and I'll see if I've got anything that'll fit you better than that." He nodded toward her ruined dress. "You don't have to, I know." He met her eyes. "But I'm going to." He walked back to the cabin, stoked the fire, and set 2 big pots of water to boil. While they heated, he went to the trunk at the foot of his bed and pulled out a flannel shirt, a pair of canvas trousers with a drawstring waist, and a wool sweater that had belonged to his younger sister. He hadn't opened that trunk in 3 years. By the time he hauled the steaming water out to the barn, Anna had swept the dirt floor and folded the blankets into neat squares. She was trying to make herself useful, trying not to be a burden. Cade set the tub down, poured the water, and handed her the clothes. "These'll be big, but they're clean and warm. I'll be up at the cabin. Take your time." He turned to go. "Why are you helping us?" He stopped, didn't turn around. "Because somebody should have helped you a long time ago," he said. "And they didn't." Then he walked back up to the cabin and started breakfast. By mid-morning, Anna and Lucy were seated at his table. Anna wore the flannel shirt rolled to her elbows and the sweater over it. Her hair was still damp, braided over one shoulder. Lucy sat beside her, silent as always, holding a tin cup of warm milk in both hands. Cade set plates in front of them. Fried eggs, thick slices of bacon, sourdough bread with butter and wild honey. Anna stared at the food like she wasn't sure it was real. "Eat," Cade said. She did. So did Lucy. They ate like they hadn't seen a full meal in days. When the plates were empty, Cade poured more coffee and finally asked the question he'd been holding back. "Who's coming for you?" Anna's hands tightened around her cup. "What makes you think?" "You don't run into a storm with a child unless something worse is chasing you." She looked at Lucy, then back at him. Her jaw set. "My husband's brother, Raymond. He wants the house my husband left me. I won't sign it over. So he's decided to take it another way." "He hit you?" "Yes." "He threatened the child?" Anna's eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. "He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd make sure I couldn't take care of her anymore. That she'd end up in an orphanage or worse." Cade's hands curled into fists on the table. He forced them open. "Does he know where you went?" "No. But he'll look. He has friends. Men who owe him favors. It's only a matter of time. Then we don't give him time." Anna blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean you stay here until you're strong enough to travel. Then I take you north to Callum's Crossing. There's a judge there, name of Farrell. He's honest, and he doesn't bend for bullies. You tell him what happened, and he'll make sure Raymond can't touch you or your girl. I can't ask you to." "You didn't ask. I'm offering." Anna stared at him. "Why?" Cade looked at Lucy, who was watching him with those big, serious eyes. Then he looked back at Anna. "I had a sister," he said quietly. "She was 17. Married a man who seemed decent enough. Wasn't. By the time I found out, it was too late. She died in a fall down the stairs. Except it wasn't a fall. The room went very still. I was working a claim 200 miles away," Cade continued. "Didn't even know she needed help until she was already gone. I swore I'd never let that happen again. Not if I could stop it." Anna's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry." "So am I." Cade stood. "Rest today. Tomorrow we'll start getting you ready to travel. And until we leave, I'm not letting you out of my sight." That afternoon, Cade taught Lucy how to feed the chickens. The little girl didn't smile, but she didn't flinch from him either. Progress. Anna sat on the porch steps, wrapped in a quilt, watching them. For the first time in days, her shoulders didn't look like they were holding up the sky. But that night, the dog started barking. Cade was on his feet in seconds, rifle in hand. He stepped onto the porch and listened. Hoofbeats. Coming up the logging road. Multiple riders. Anna appeared in the doorway, Lucy behind her, eyes wide with terror. Get in the barn, Cade said. Lock the door from me inside. Don't come out unless I tell you to. Cade, go. She ran. Cade stepped off the porch and walked into the clearing, the rifle resting easy in his hands. The riders came into view. 3 men. Rough-looking, with hard eyes and holstered pistols. The one in front grinned. You, Brennan. I am. We're looking for a woman. Anna called her. Heard she might have come this way. Cade's face didn't change. Haven't seen her. The man's grin widened. That's funny. Because her brother-in-law's real eager to find her. Offering good money. You sure you haven't seen her? I'm sure. The men exchanged glances. One of them started to dismount. Cade racked the lever on the Winchester. The sound echoed across the clearing like a cannon shot. You're on my land, Cade said quietly. And you're about to get off it. The men stared at him. At the rifle. At the sheer size of him standing there in the fading light. The leader spat into the dirt. This ain't over. Yes, Cade said. It is. They turned their horses and rode back down the mountain. But Cade knew they'd be back. And next time, they'd bring more men. Cade didn't sleep that night. He sat on the porch with the rifle across his knees and watched the tree line. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant. An owl called from the ridge. At dawn, Anna came out of the barn with Lucy's hand in hers. Her face was pale but determined. We're leaving, she said. Today, we've put you in enough danger. You're not ready to travel. I don't care. I won't let you get hurt because of me. Cade stood. Those men will be watching the roads. You won't make it 10 miles. Then what do you suggest? He looked at her for a long moment. Then he made a decision. We go to them. Anna blinked. What? Raymond wants you scared and running. So we stop running. We go to Ridge Falls, straight to the land office, and you file a legal claim on that house with witnesses. Then we go to the sheriff, the real sheriff, not whoever Raymond's bought, and you press charges for assault. We do it all in daylight, in front of the whole town. He can't touch you if everyone's watching. You don't know him. He doesn't care who's watching. Then he'll have to go through me. Cade's voice was flat and absolute. And I promise you, Anna, he won't. She stared at him. This man who owed her nothing, who'd given up his bed, his safety, his peace, for 2 strangers. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Because you asked for a corner in a barn, and you deserved a whole hell of a lot more than that. He looked down at Lucy. Both of you. Anna's eyes filled. This time, she let the tears fall. They rode into Ridge Falls 2 days later, Cade on his big roan gelding, Anna and Lucy on a sturdy mare he'd borrowed from a trapper friend. Cade wore his long canvas coat, the rifle in a scabbard at his knee. He rode like a man who'd already decided how this was going to end. The town was small, rough, built around the lumber mill. People stopped and stared as they passed. Anna called her, missing for days, riding back into town with a mountain man twice the size of any logger in the valley. They went to the land office first. The clerk was a nervous man with ink-stained fingers. When Anna laid her late husband's deed on the counter and requested a witnessed registration in her name alone, the clerk hesitated. Ma'am, I need to verify. Verify it, Cade said quietly. The clerk looked up at him. Swallowed. Verified it. By the time they left, Anna had a stamped, legal document in her hand. Witnessed by 3 people, including the clerk and the postmaster. Next, they went to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Dockery was a lean, weathered man in his 50s. He listened to Anna's story without interrupting. When she finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his jaw. Raymond Coulter's got friends, Mrs. Coulter. I know. Filing charges against him is going to make you enemies. I already have enemies. Dockery looked at Cade. And you are? Cade Brennan. I'm here to make sure she doesn't face them alone. Dockery studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. I'll issue a warrant. But Raymond's going to fight this. Let him. Raymond Coulter was arrested that afternoon. He came in shouting, threatening lawsuits and violence, swearing he'd make Anna regret the day she was born. Cade stood outside the sheriff's office, arms crossed, and watched them drag Raymond inside. The man saw him through the window. His face went white. He knew. He knew that if he came near Anna or Lucy again, he wouldn't be dealing with the law. He'd be dealing with the mountain. 3 weeks later, a judge in Callum's Crossing ruled in Anna's favor. The house was hers. Raymond was ordered to stay 500 yards away from her and Lucy at all times. He left Ridge Falls 2 days after the ruling and didn't come back. Anna sold the house a month later. She couldn't live in a place that held so much fear. She used the money to buy a small homestead 10 miles from Cade's Valley. A cabin with good land, a clear creek, and a view of the mountains. Cade helped her build a new porch. He taught Lucy how to fish. He brought venison when the winter got hard. And slowly, carefully, the space between them warmed. One evening in early spring, as the last snow melted off the peaks and the meadows turned green, Anna stood on her new porch and watched Cade split firewood in the yard. His shirt was off despite the chill, his broad back gleaming with sweat, every movement powerful and sure. Lucy sat on the steps, braiding wildflowers into a crown. Anna felt something settle in her chest, something she thought she'd lost forever. Hope. Cade set down the axe and walked over. He was breathing hard, his face flushed. He looked at her, then at Lucy, then back at her. "You doing all right?" he asked. "Yes," Anna said. And for the first time in years, it was the whole truth. He nodded, started to turn away. "Cade." He stopped. "Stay for supper." He looked at her, really looked at her, and in his ice blue eyes, she saw the same hope reflected back. "All right," he said. They were married that summer, in the little church in Callum's Crossing. Lucy stood beside her mother, holding a bouquet of wildflowers, and smiled for the first time since the night they'd run into the storm. Cade Brennan, the man who'd guarded a barn door for a woman who asked for nothing, built them a home where fear had no place, where Lucy grew up strong and unafraid, where Anna learned that love didn't have to hurt. And every night, when the wind howled down from the high country, Cade would check the doors, bank the fire, and return to the bed he now shared with the woman who'd stumbled into his life and changed everything. He'd spent 8 years alone in the mountains, waiting for nothing. And then she'd knocked, and he'd found everything.